Stop, don't spend that Jefferson nickel yet. The 1945S and 1998D may look like ordinary 5-cent coins, but there's a huge difference between an average nickel and an exceptional one. The 1945S comes from America's wartime silver-nickel era, while the 1998D can become much more interesting in exceptional condition. Most people never check the details, they just spend them. But stay until the end, because I'll show you exactly what to look for before you let one of these coins go for just 5 cents. The coin number 1. Stop before you spend that 1945S Jefferson nickel. Take a closer look. Most people see a 5-cent coin, notice that it's old, and either throw it into a jar or spend it without thinking twice. But this particular nickel comes from one of the most unusual periods in American coinage. It was made during World War II, and unlike an ordinary nickel, the 1945S Jefferson nickel contains silver. But here's the real question. Does every 1945S nickel make you rich? Absolutely not. The exciting part is finding an example with exceptional condition, strong details, full steps, or another genuine collectible feature. So before you let this 5-cent coin disappear into your pocket change, let's find out exactly what makes the 1945S worth checking. Start by turning the coin toward the front. You should see the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson, one of the most recognizable faces in American coinage. Underneath his portrait is the date 1945, and somewhere on the coin you should find the small S mint mark, identifying the San Francisco Mint. That tiny S is important because it tells you where your nickel was produced, but the date and mint mark are only the beginning of the story. The year 1945 was an extraordinary moment in American history. World War II was coming to an end, but the United States Mint was still dealing with the effects of wartime shortages. Nickel was an important industrial metal, so the mint changed the composition of the 5-cent coin during the war years. Instead of using the traditional nickel-heavy alloy, the wartime Jefferson nickel used a mixture containing silver, copper, and manganese. That makes these coins especially interesting to collectors today. So if you have a genuine 1945S Jefferson nickel, you're not simply holding an old 5-cent coin. You're holding a small piece of America's wartime history. Now flip the coin over. You'll see the famous Monticello building on the reverse. Above it is EPLURBUSUNUM, while below are United States of America and 5 cents. Look closely at the area around Monticello. This is where experienced Jefferson nickel collectors start paying much more attention. One of the biggest factors in a high-grade Jefferson nickel is the condition of the steps on Monticello. Collectors often look for coins with clearly defined, uninterrupted steps, commonly described as full steps. Why does that matter? Because striking Monticello's steps sharply wasn't always easy. A coin can look beautiful at first glance, but when you zoom in on the building, you may discover that the steps are weak, broken, or partially missing because of the strike. Now imagine you have two 1945S nickels. Both are genuine. Both have the same date. Both have the S mint mark. Both contain silver. But one has been circulating for decades. It has scratches, wear, dull surfaces, and weak details. The other looks almost untouched. Jefferson's portrait is sharp, the lettering is crisp, the surfaces have attractive original luster, and the steps of Monticello are remarkably clear. To someone who doesn't collect coins, they are both 5-cent pieces. To a serious collector, they can be completely different coins. And this is where condition can dramatically change value. PCGS currently lists the regular 1945S in its price guide with substantially higher values as the grade increases, especially for full steps examples. And here's a number that may surprise you. A professionally certified 1945S Jefferson nickel graded MS67 plus full steps sold for $2,640 at a 2024 Stack's Bowers auction. But please don't make the mistake of thinking every 1945 nickel is worth thousands of dollars. It isn't. That $2,640 result was for an exceptionally preserved, professionally graded full-step specimen. A normal circulated 1945 is a completely different situation. This is exactly why you should never judge a coin only by its date. The real question is, what condition is your coin in? Take your nickel and place it under good lighting. Look at Jefferson's cheek. Look around his jaw. Check the open fields. Look at the lettering. Are there lots of scratches? Does the coin show obvious wear? Has the surface become dull from years of circulation? If yes, you're probably looking at an ordinary circulated example. But if the coin has strong original luster and remarkably clean surfaces, don't put it away just yet. Turn it over again. Now concentrate on Monticello. Look at the steps. Are the individual lines sharp? Do they appear complete? Are they interrupted by weakness or contact marks? This is one of the details that can make a high-grade Jefferson nickel much more interesting. And here's something important: don't try to improve the coin yourself. Never use toothpaste. Never use metal polish. Never scrub the surface. Never use chemicals just to make it shiny. A collector wants to know what the coin's original surface looks like. Cleaning can permanently damage that surface and reduce the coin's appeal. If your 1945 looks unusually good, protect it instead of trying to make it look better. Now let's talk about the silver content. Because this nickel was made during the wartime composition period, the 1945 is a Silver War nickel. That is one reason these coins are popular even when they're not in extraordinary condition. But don't confuse the silver content with a massive fortune. The amount of silver in one war nickel is relatively small. Its collector value can come from several different factors: its historical importance, condition, strike quality, full steps designation, and collector demand. So don't buy or sell one simply because someone tells you it's silver, therefore it's worth thousands. That's not how coin values work. Now imagine finding one in an old collection. Maybe it belonged to a parent or grandparent. Maybe it has been sitting inside a small coin box for decades. Maybe you find it mixed together with ordinary nickels. You pick it up. You see Jefferson. You see 1945. Then you notice the S. You turn it over. You see Monticello. At first, it looks like just another old nickel. But then you look closer. The surfaces are surprisingly clean. The design is sharp. The luster is still visible. And then you notice something else. The steps on Monticello look unusually complete. That is when you stop. You don't spend it. You don't clean it. You don't throw it back into the jar. You protect it. Because that little 5-cent coin may deserve a closer examination. Now let's talk about errors and varieties. If your 1945 looks strange, don't immediately assume you've found a rare error. A scratch is not automatically an error. A dent isn't automatically an error. A strange-looking mark caused by another coin isn't automatically a mint error. A genuine mint error must have originated during the coin's production. So if you notice something that looks genuinely unusual, especially something that appears to have happened during striking or planchet preparation, don't damage the coin trying to investigate it. Take photographs. Keep the coin safe. And if the feature appears significant, professional authentication can help determine whether you're looking at a genuine mint-made characteristic or damage that happened after the coin left the mint. Now here's another reason I love the 1945 Jefferson Nickel. It connects everyday American money with a major moment in history. Imagine a person receiving this nickel in 1945. The war was still fresh in people's minds. American soldiers were returning home. Factories were changing. The economy was transitioning. And ordinary Americans were carrying these wartime nickels in their pockets. Today, more than 80 years later, that same design can still be found in collections. That's what makes old coins special. They're not just metal. They are tiny objects that survived from another era. And the 1945 has an especially interesting story because of the unusual wartime composition. Now let's return to value. The biggest mistake viewers make is looking at the highest auction result and assuming that every example deserves that price. Don't do that. A 1945 in circulated condition can be worth dramatically less than an elite certified specimen. PCGS's current listings show how the value increases as the grade rises, while full steps examples can command substantially more than ordinary examples. That's why professional grading becomes important at the high end. A professional grader evaluates the coin's condition and authenticates it. For a truly exceptional coin, certification can make it much easier for collectors to understand exactly what they're looking at. But don't send every 5-cent coin for grading automatically. First, inspect it yourself. Look at the date. Look for the S. Check the surfaces. Study Jefferson's portrait. Turn the coin over. Study Monticello. Look carefully at the steps. Then ask yourself, does this coin look unusually well preserved? If the answer is no, it's probably just a normal circulated war nickel. If the answer is yes, that's when the coin deserves more attention. And remember something very important. Old does not automatically mean rare. Silver does not automatically mean expensive. A mint mark does not automatically mean valuable. The value comes from the complete combination of characteristics. That's the real secret behind the 1945 Jefferson Nickel. So the next time you see a 1945 in your collection, don't just think, it's only 5 cents. Think about the year. Think about the wartime history. Think about the silver composition. Think about the condition. Think about Monticello's steps. And think about whether the coin might be an unusually high-grade example. Because while most 1945 nickels won't make you rich overnight, the right example can absolutely be much more interesting than its 5-cent face value suggests. A professionally graded MS-67 plus full steps example reaching $2,640 proves just how dramatically the market can separate an ordinary coin from an exceptional one. So before you spend yours, take one final look. Check 1945. Check the S mint mark. Look at Jefferson. Look at the surfaces. Turn it over. Study Monticello. And most importantly, check those steps. Don't clean it, don't polish it, don't rush to sell it. Protect it first. Because sometimes the most interesting thing about an old coin isn't the number printed on it. It's the story hidden inside the metal and the tiny details that most people never bother to examine. Your 1945 Jefferson Nickel may be ordinary, or it may be an exceptional survivor from America's wartime era. The only way to know is to look closely. The coin number 2. Stop before you spend a 1998 Jefferson Nickel. Take one more look at it. It may look like an ordinary 5-cent coin, but there is one thing every collector knows. The date alone doesn't tell the whole story. A normal 1998 is common, but an unusually well-preserved example a strong strike, full steps, or a genuine mint error can make the same 5-cent coin much more interesting. So if you have a 1998D sitting in an old collection, coin jar, drawer, or pocket change, don't spend it just yet. Let's take a closer look and find out what actually matters. Start with the front of the coin. You'll see the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson with the date 1998 underneath. Now look for the tiny D mint mark. That D identifies the Denver Mint. And here's the first thing you need to understand. The 1998D is not rare simply because it's an older-looking nickel. More than 635 million were produced, so ordinary circulated examples are not scarce. But coin collecting gets much more interesting when we stop asking how many were made and start asking how many survived in exceptional condition. Think about what happens to a nickel after it enters circulation. It gets mixed with thousands of other coins. It falls onto hard surfaces. It travels through vending machines, cash registers, pockets, jars, and coin counters. Every contact can leave tiny marks. That's why two 1998D nickels can look completely different to a collector. One might be scratched, worn, dull, and heavily circulated. The other might still have beautiful original luster, sharp details, and remarkably clean surfaces. Both say 1998D, but they are not necessarily worth the same amount. Now take your coin and place it under a bright light. Look carefully at Jefferson's cheek. Check his jaw. Look around the hair. Examine the open fields surrounding the portrait. Are there lots of tiny contact marks? Does the coin show obvious wear? Is the surface dull? If so, you're probably looking at an ordinary circulated example. But if the coin is unusually clean and bright, slow down. That is where the grade becomes important. A high-grade coin is much harder to find than an ordinary circulated coin, because every tiny mark can affect its final grade. Now turn the nickel over. There is Monticello, the famous building associated with Thomas Jefferson. This is where Jefferson nickel collectors often pay special attention. Look at the steps beneath Monticello. Are the individual steps clearly separated? Do they appear complete? Are they strong and sharply defined? If they are, you may have what collectors call a full steps example. And this can be important. The reason is simple. Producing a sharp strike on the Monticello steps can be difficult. A coin may look fantastic from a distance, while the steps underneath are weak or incomplete. So don't just look at the portrait. Turn the coin over. Study Monticello. Study those steps. This small detail can completely change how interesting the coin becomes. And here's where things get surprising. PCGS records a 1998D Jefferson Nickel graded MS66 that sold for $2,640 at a Stack's Bowers auction in 2021. Now don't misunderstand that number. It does not mean your ordinary 1998D nickel is worth $2,640. It isn't. That was an exceptionally graded, professionally certified example. In fact, PCGS's current guide shows that regular 1998D coins are generally worth modest amounts at normal grades, while full steps examples can bring substantially higher prices at the top end. That's an important lesson for anyone searching coins. The date can get your attention, but the condition can tell the real story. Now imagine finding one in an old coin jar. You pull out a nickel. You see Jefferson. You see 1998. You find the D. Nothing seems unusual. Then you turn it over. You look at Monticello. And suddenly, you notice that the steps are much sharper than you normally see. You look back at the front. The surfaces are incredibly clean. There are very few visible marks. The original luster is still strong. Now you have a reason to stop. You don't spend it. You don't clean it. You don't polish it. You protect it. Because cleaning a collectible coin can damage its original surface and hurt its desirability. Never use toothpaste. Never use metal polish. Never scrape the surface. Never try to make an old coin shine before showing it to a collector or professional. A naturally preserved coin can be far more desirable than a coin that has been aggressively cleaned. Now let's talk about another possibility. Mint errors. This is where you need to be very careful. Not every strange-looking mark is an error. A scratch isn't automatically a mint error. A dent isn't automatically a mint error. A gouge isn't automatically a mint error. Damage that happens after a coin leaves the mint is different from a genuine manufacturing error. A true mint error occurs during production. So if your 1998D has something that looks genuinely unusual, don't immediately declare it a rare error. Take a close photograph. Protect the coin. Compare the feature carefully. And if it appears significant, have it examined by someone qualified. That's much safer than believing every dramatic claim you see online. Now let's talk about the history behind the coin. The Jefferson nickel was introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel. Thomas Jefferson's portrait became the face of America's 5-cent coin, while Monticello appeared on the reverse. By 1998, the Jefferson nickel had already been part of American everyday life for 6 decades. And that's what makes these coins fascinating. A 1998D isn't an ancient artifact, but it is still a piece of late 20th century American coinage. It passed through the economy during a completely different era. People used these nickels at stores, restaurants, vending machines, gas stations, and cash registers. Some disappeared into collections. Some were lost. Some were damaged. And some survived in surprisingly good condition. That's why searching old coins can be so addictive. You're not simply looking for an old date. You're looking for the exceptional survivor. Now let's answer the question most viewers will ask. How much is a 1998D Jefferson nickel worth? The honest answer is, it depends. A normal circulated example is generally worth around its face value. A better preserved example can bring a premium. A high-grade certified coin can be worth much more. And an exceptional full steps example can become significantly more collectible. PCGS's current price data shows the difference between regular and full steps examples, with the highest grades carrying substantially larger figures. So don't look at one high auction result and assume every 1998D is valuable. Instead, look at the grade, strike, surfaces, and steps. That's the smart way to search. Now here's a simple mental test. Imagine someone offers you 2 1998D nickels. The first one is scratched and worn. The second one looks almost untouched and has beautifully defined Monticello steps. Which one would you keep? Obviously, the second one. And that's exactly how professional collectors think. They're not simply collecting dates. They're looking for quality. They're looking for exceptional preservation. They're looking for varieties. They're looking for errors. And they're looking for coins that stand apart from the millions of ordinary examples. So if you have a 1998D Jefferson nickel, take another look before spending it. Check the 1998 date. Check the D mint mark. Study Jefferson's portrait. Look at the surfaces. Turn it over. Examine Monticello. Look closely at the steps. Then check for anything that appears genuinely unusual. And remember the most important rule. Don't clean it. If it looks ordinary and heavily circulated, don't expect a fortune. But if it looks unusually sharp, bright, and well preserved, especially with strong full steps, then it may deserve a closer professional examination. The documented $2,640 auction result proves that an exceptional 1998 D can be worth dramatically more than 5 cents. But that price belongs to a specific high-grade certified example, not every nickel with the same date. So the next time you see a 1998 D Jefferson nickel, don't immediately think, "It's only 5 cents." Think, what condition is this coin in? How strong is the strike? Are the Monticello steps complete? Could there be a genuine mint error? Those are the questions that matter. Because sometimes the difference between an ordinary nickel and a collectible nickel isn't obvious from the date. It's hidden in the tiny details. And those tiny details are exactly what you should be looking for. So before you spend that 1998 D Jefferson nickel, turn it over one more time. Check Monticello, check the steps, check the surfaces. You might not have a fortune, but you could have a coin worth investigating.